So we're just going to finish up. I think food is food available shortly. Food is arriving, actually. So whilst the food is arriving, we just wanted a bit of a discussion at the end. So I just wanted to, so there was the first, what was the first one? You can, Matt's doing this on his phone. Amazing. Yeah, how about that then? Do you have a will? No, not the will. No, we don't want that. That's boring. Yeah. Yeah, we've done that. So we just want a discussion on: do you believe the food producing part of your business is profitable? 73%. So I think you saw the figures that I put up, and so I wouldn't say that. I don't know, Will. What would you say? Do you think that is true, Will Tongue? Yeah, probably. Yeah, quite. Well, the bottom, as we've said, the bottom 25% are not here. So yeah. In any case, so and I'm quite surprised at that, and the figures that I put up probably discounted that a bit, because the food producing part, which is excluding BPS and excluding rental income, there's not a lot of margin left there, even on the 22 harvest. So I would say it's a lot smaller than that. I don't know whether you want to, anybody wants to make a comment and grab the bottle of wine now at this stage. And then what was the next one? So should we have to rely on selling environmental benefits for the country to have cheap food? Now that is, I don't know if anybody wants to dare comment on that. I hope that the conclusion from the this conference is that we can do both. Is that, Harriet? Do you want to say? Would you? Yeah, I think. You can come to this mic, perhaps, if you haven't got a mic around. There's a mic coming down, actually. Yeah. Do you think we can do both?
Yeah, I think we can do both, and we should. Like I said, I think the levers that are being pulled sort of at the governmental level are very much incentivizing us to go in that direction. So we absolutely should take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, okay.
I think the food industry, or the whole food system is currently not paying its bills. I think the National Food Strategy calculated that £70 billion per year in externalized cost of the food system. So obviously we need cheap food, and I'm not suggesting food needs to be more expensive, but we are working in an unfair system currently. So we need to put nature on the balance sheet in order to make it stack up.
Yeah. Okay.
So otherwise it just doesn't.
Yep. Thanks, Harriet. Okay. So we've got this balance at the moment of SFI coming in, and that the impact of SFI, and Tom Arthey and Will Tongue, I'm sure, agree with me that quite a few farmers now are looking quite positively at the SFI, and it's going to have quite an impact on food production. So, leading to you, Julie, would you like to make a comment on what the impact you think? Have the government got it right in terms of the actual payments on SFI? Are they enough, or are they too much?
So I do fear that the government has sort of cornered itself here, partly because their message was, go back to Michael Gove 2018, you can sell your produce from your farm, your goods from your farm, or you can sell environmental services. And the government has a very, ambitious environmental policy, which it has now backed with payments. And there wasn't much take up at the levels that were first mooted, so it's increased those levels, and they're looking quite good. Some of those in-field options now, they're looking very tempting, particularly if you're a landlord and you could actually make more from wildflowers than from letting your land to a tenant farmer.
Than an FBT, yeah.
Yeah, than letting your land. Ditto on the contract farming side, actually. So I think there's a risk here, and I don't know what the answer is. I know some people feel there should be limits on how much any particular claimant puts in of their farm. I think that would take us right back to pre-Brexit. Paperwork measuring, etc. But I do think that SFI may need to be reined back on. But I think it's going to be difficult for government to do because of their, 30 by 30 and their high and ambitious nature targets.
Very brave to say SFI payments are too high. Yeah.
Gary, can I just add something on that?
Yes, well, absolutely. We're open debate now, so over to you.
Just on some of the options,
Avi?
I sell seed for these options for a living, okay? So you would imagine I'd be delighted if people wanted to buy hundreds and thousands of hectares of bird food from me. We don't need 50 hectares of bird food in one place on one farm. The environment doesn't need it. It will lead to massive populations of rats, if nothing else. What we need is 50 1-hectare blocks of bird food all over the countryside. So the idea of limiting some of the options appeals to me greatly through absolute common sense. It's nothing about money to farmers. It's just having the opportunity to grow a 50-hectare field of bird mix is daft. Some of the other options should be massively encouraged, like cover crops, direct drilling, water protection, those sorts of things. But there are certain options which there is no limit on at the moment, which absolutely need a limit because it's just common sense they need a limit. And in previous versions of stewardship, they had one. Don't get me wrong, they had a hugely difficult task writing the SFI to meet their opportunity, which was to try and give us the latitude and the space to make it work for every farm from Cornwall to Northumberland. Good luck doing that. That's a tough gig to try and write that. And I think they've done a pretty good job. But there are some glaring errors which I think need correcting quite soon, and I think they'll be corrected. But I really support the principle of giving us some space to try and make them work. But in return, we have to treat that space with good grace and not just drive a coach and horses through the rules where there's a bit of grey area. Do you agree with me?
Yes, agreement. Sam? Sam Raby.
When we started the environment thing up with our margins, can you hear, Ian? We weren't encouraged to put in proper margins. All we had was grass that was just grown and rubbish and everything else. There was no feed source or value whatsoever in that. If we'd had proper bird seed margins, we would have had insects to pollinate and everything else. And it's not been thought through. And that's what happens. It doesn't get thought through properly, these things with government.
But it is now, Sam.
It is now.
Yeah.
I'm talking historically and where we are at the moment. We're in this transition of, are we going to have to do this properly, our gross margins and everything?
Okay.
I think we've set our business up, and we're 20 years old this year. We've set our business up encouraging people to do this properly. And unfortunately, the problem with stewardship over the years is there's been no advantage to a farmer doing something really well as opposed to a farmer doing it just above the minimum requirement. So we've had people who've done margins which are absolutely fantastically floristically diverse and rich, and someone who's done something which has got 1 or 2 oxeye daisies in, and they get paid the same. Now, administratively, to do a payment results thing, which they did trial, and it demonstrated by paying people for results, they got better results. Shock. But it's hugely administratively heavy, so I don't think they want to do that. But I do think the minimum requirements need to be better. And I think things like farmer clusters are really important in that, because there's no one you want to do better than your neighbour, right? And if your neighbour's coming to your farm and looking at stuff, then that's a big incentive to do something well. But I agree with you. Some of it was just access to knowledge, access to information, but there really isn't an excuse for that now, because there's
been a process, hasn't there? So we've got a question at the back. Peter Kendall, please.
Gary, thank you. I'm going to do something I've never dared do before, and that's disagree with Julie Robinson in public. I've sparred with Julie, or she's helped me look more intelligent than I am for many years. But Ian, you're spot on. I was down speaking to Canterbury farmers last night and hearing repeated examples where either land agents are holding SFI up, or why they should be minimum FBT rents, why land should be taken back in hand, And actually, Ian, you're right that we should improve some payments and we should limit some other ones. Why? Because I think the government's looking in the rearview mirror. When wheat was £200 a tonne and we thought we were going to get drilled up, we're now looking at wheat prices sub £150. We're looking at wet, sodden fields. And I think there'll be a real temptation to take over advantage of NUM3s. The rules will be tightened up, and we'll have an issue where people are being paid large sums of money not to be producing food. And I do think that's going to be quite a challenge politically for people. I think the NFU have found themselves in a muddle because they wanted to spend the money that the government had taken off BPS payments. They've thrown it out there, and now they're realising, I'm not saying there is, but there's a potential for real unintended consequences. Julie, I think the challenge is for clever lawyers to find a way of not making this like it was in the past of lots of papers. So it's over to you.
Thanks, Peter. Judy, do you want to?
I mean, there was a day, Peter, when mandatory set aside was 15%. So the opposite, you had to take 15% out. And I just don't know if you're suggesting that we go back and say, no, you can't put more than 20% or 15% or 30% into in-field environmental options. Having said that, I think this is going to be rectified. I think this is going to turn again. There'll be a change of direction. And I'm quite interested in provisions which don't mean that we start measuring 20% of holdings again, but which actually mean you can have this particular prescription, but for no, the wildflowers, you can have it, but for no more than blocks of a certain hectareage adjacent to each other. Or whatever, so that in some ways we can minimize that temptation to take whole tracts of land out of production.
Yeah, thank you. So it will be fine-tuned. So can we have any other comments? Yeah, Ollie, come back to you. Oh, sorry. So you had come back to you. Tom Arthey.
I was just going to ask, under countryside stewardship, there was always a bit of a distrust. A lot of the reasons why farmers would never go into it or came out is that they felt that it was a way for the sort of government to have sort of something on them. And then, we've now got this SFI scheme that's a lot more flexible, a lot more farmer friendly. But now we're talking already, and it's only just in its infancy, about tightening up the rules. How does that then do farmers then get a distrust back because the rules that have just been set are already not right? And then do farmers just say, well, sod this, we'll just carry on how we were doing it? I just sort of wonder how you sort of almost reverse out of what you've already done without creating a whole new way of distrust from the farming sector.
Good point. Yeah. Anybody else want to comment? Yeah, we have here. So Jan England.
Thanks, Gary. One thing I was going to say is, should it be the government or DEFRA that's actually involved in all of this? Because we've done research amongst thousands of farmers this last year on SFI, biodiversity and everything else. And the top thing that comes out of what they're saying is, if you rank important things to them, it's all food security. On the other hand, we've just finished a project for DEFRA on what consumers think and whether they'll buy British, whether they'll buy organic. And what we're learning, and I can't give away very much yet because it's not been published, but what we're learning is consumers will pay, they want to know more, they want to understand more. So the government seem to be somewhat on the back foot, like Peter's just said. And should it be the government that's controlling all of this, or should it be market forces? I'll put it to the floor. I don't know if there's anyone from DEFRA here, but
no, there is not.
It just seems a disconnect between the government and what people and farmers want. Does anybody agree?
Shouldn't the NFU and CLA be in there advising the government, though? Isn't it the role of the NFU?
Not just them.
Anybody want to comment on what Jan said? That there's no engagement. Peter, do you want to make a comment on that? No. No. Julie, you've silenced Peter. Yes. No more comments on that. Okay, so the food is ready. Is it? Thumbs up at the back. Yeah, you got lots of thumbs up at the back. So the food is ready. So who do you think should have my favourite bottle of wine? Sorry? Oh, so we got a proposal from George. It should be Julie. Oh, we got another one with Julie. Okay. Sorry? The loss of food if we go along the lines of regenerative agriculture, which is the same point as organic farming, isn't it? So there's is organic farming good for the environment? So Tom Arthey, is that right? Yeah, is that the one? So was it Tom? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Julie and Tom, I've only got one bottle of wine. Yeah. So any other proposals? No, Lawrence, Tom Arthey, or Julie. So who? Let's have a vote. Come on. Shout aye for Julie. All right, and hands up. Tom. Oh wow. Do you like wine? Not really. So Tom Arthey, you've got a bottle of my favourite wine there. Okay. Sorry? Oh, well, you'll see later on. Yeah. So, it's organic. It's regen produced organically. Screw top, yeah. Right. Okay. So the food is ready, and I just want to to wind this up. Thank you. I hope you found this interesting. And so thank you very much for coming to our annual conference. I think this has been a really, really good one. We've had more people, I think 40%, I think 40% more people here than we've had last time. And I think I'd just like to thank the people that have come, 2 hours, 1.5 hours. We got, Martin Ritchie here, who is one of my fellow scoundrels from Essex. We go back a long way. So Martin, 1.5 hours to here you drove here, I think. Yeah, which is, thank you very much for coming. Brown family, Robert Mann and Sills family. It's all of you who have come, more than an hour just to come to have our hog roast, which is so very grateful. Obviously, thank you all for coming. But so those of you who have travelled a long way to come, it's humbling to see that. So I'd like to thank the speakers. Harriet and Ian, thank you very much for contributing. And I hope you found it all interesting. Can we thank the speakers, please, before we...